What's up, everybody? This week we look at Donkey Kong Country, a classic game in the platform genre. That and a whole lot more is to come, because maybe you kids today, you don't have any respect for your elders. We used to be lucky if we got 3 shades of grey, let alone any real colours. We never had any of this fancy 3D stuff. You know, what people don't realize is that I just carried on talking in that bit, but, you know, hey, what's the problem? No problem at all. Hey, guys, how you doing? It's good to be back here on Saturday, back at our usual time, thank God. And I'm recording in the middle of the afternoon this time, because I'm not recording at 7 o'clock in the morning. Last time was a nightmare. Last time was a complete nightmare, and kudos to Sarah for getting through it, especially with our prior titties. But I'm joined in studio number 2 by the one and only Gregg. Gregg, how are you, man?
Hey, good to be back.
He is the, I guess he is the Donkey Kong to my Cranky Kong, as it is these days. But no, we've got a good show for you coming up. We're going to talk about Donkey Kong here in a minute. We've got a result of a poll question that we asked. And guys, you know, if you guys are on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, look up Because Maybe Pod. Look up our blog, BecauseMaybePodcast.wordpress.com. And go on YouTube and search Because Maybe Podcast. So, how have you been, man? It's been a while since we've heard from you.
Oh, good. It's been on the road a lot.
Sweet.
Working on the house. Building the studio at home right now. So
I've seen pictures. The studio looks tight as well.
It's slowly but surely. I pretty much got everything in place, but soundproofing and a new CPU, and those are both on the list to do next. But I got to paint, tear out carpet. I just bought a desk, rebuilt that. Added a subwoofer and some nice reference monitors. And
they sound brilliant too as well.
Yeah, the little the PreSonus Aris 3.5. Yeah, $100, man.
Not bad at all. I've got them on my list when I build my studio. But yeah, for all the amateur professional musicians out there who want to soundproof their room, right? I was talking to Sarah about soundproofing because I might be, I might be doing a lot of work from home, and just help with this as well.
Same, yeah.
I can't put the panels on the wall because I'm not allowed to use spray adhesive on a wooden wall, and so the solution: you get a poster board from like Dollar Tree, Dollar General, something like that. That's at least a foot wide and a foot tall, you know, and you glue the panel onto that, and then you pin it to the wall.
Yeah, I mean,
so you don't destroy anything.
It's definitely probably not the most professional looking thing you'll see, but is at a pinch, like function over form, you know.
You can just tell that somebody spent a lot of time on Pinterest lately, you know.
Hey, that's smart though.
It is. I mean, well, I say it is. I don't know. I don't know if it works. It might not work. It might, it might dampen it in one area, then reflect it in the other. I don't know.
The only thing I could think of is that maybe over time, the weight of the board would kind of crumple under the weight of the... And we're only talking about a couple of ounces, but I mean, over time,
you know. But an ounce adds up. Trust me, I've had many new ounces over the last couple of years, and they've added up.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask you a question, dude. Right. The kids at the house, they're not driving me crazy with anything other than they are begging me to play that Fortnight game or play Call of Duty against them.
Okay.
Give me a reason why I should play video games, shoot 'em video games with teenagers.
I mean...
Aside from going to cream them, right, and they'll go home crying.
Right. Well, I mean, with kids, man, I mean, it's always tough trying to connect to them and spend time with them. Yeah. So anytime you can find a way to play to their interests and do something engaging with them that helps you bond, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and the Call of Duty thing, not a problem. I just put it in, lose a couple of times, win a couple of times, call it good. It's that Fortnite thing, man. I've got no interest in knowing how many men my mother has slept with in the last 3 weeks.
Well, I mean, that's any online gaming these days, man. Yeah, I've played some Call of Duty, but I've never played Fortnite. I'm still stuck in Skyrim right now. Here. And, I got the SNES Classic too, so I've been playing that a lot.
What about the PlayStation Classic?
I saw that it's coming out.
Tekken 3.
Yeah, Tekken 3 was a huge game for me. Oh, yeah, also, I'm going to be in a Tekken tournament this weekend.
Really?
Yes.
Sweet.
Yeah, first prize is $100 and a PS4 Pro.
Nice. Where's this at?
It's at the Q Tavern in Bossier City, Louisiana.
Oh, okay. Sweet.
We played there a couple weeks ago. Real nice place. Trying to add the gaming element to the community, giving the gamers a place to. I mean, they have like PS4 or Wii. CPU set up there. You can bring your own. They've got peripherals, monitors, all that.
It's kind of better than the slot machines that they used to have. Nobody's losing any money.
Yeah.
Well, then again, it's like, I bet you $5 I can beat you at Madden. Okay.
Yeah. I do always play the Madden tournaments in town. But yeah, I mean, man, these days, I mean, playing Fortnite with your kid or your kids or whoever is no different than 20 years ago, saying going out and back and throwing the ball around. I mean, you're just bonding. It's just an updated way.
I never understood that, just taking the ball and throwing it back and forth and considering it fun. Yeah, we used to play competitively. Can you catch it? You can't catch it. Look at It's like,
we had
kids today. They don't understand.
When I was a kid, we used to make up our own games.
Yes.
And one of them, our favorite thing to do, and this was back when I lived in Tucson. Me and my buddy Fabian and my buddy Mike and a few others, we invented this game, which was basically, it was like hide and seek and dodgeball put together.
Oh.
It was awesome. It was called Peg It. That's what we called it. So basically, you would have like an area, like a arena that we would designate. And in most cases, it was this little cul-de-sac that was right down the block from us. Fabian and I lived across the street from each other. And then my buddy Mike lived, maybe 2-minute bike ride down the road. So we would all meet up at my house, walk down the cul-de-sac, and we had like a little mini Nerf football. So the collateral damage was minimum at best. But same rules as hide and seek. The seeker turns around. He's got the football in his hand. He counts to 30 or whatever we did. Other people hide, but they can only stay in the arena. So you got elements of Marco Polo in there too, I guess. But anyway, as you could probably imagine by combining the two, you had to go seek out people, but instead of like finding them, like, haha, I found you, you had to peg them with this football. And then once that football bounced off, you're like, boom, and it bounced off of them. You knew that, okay, they had won, and now that person was the seeker. Oh, dude, we killed so many hours playing that game. So many hours.
The worst game I played with my buddies that involved something similar to that. In basketball, you call it horse.
Yeah.
Right. We played a similar game. We called it Arse, right? ARSE. And what it was is you'd have one goalkeeper, because it was a soccer game. You'd have one goalkeeper, and the rest of you would be in the penalty area. And they kick the ball into the penalty area. And the object was to score a goal. But if you miskick the ball or you didn't score, you got a letter named, ARSE. Yeah. And then whoever was the arse had to stand up against the wall. Like, you see it on cops, the dudes spread up against the wall, and they would just take turns in kicking that ball up against you as hard as they could. Oh, that's part of the reason I became the goalkeeper, because I didn't have to be involved in that. But yeah, that was, kids are cruel, man, but kids are awesome.
We have a version of that we played in America called wall ball.
Wall ball.
I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's really similar to racquetball. Okay. Except that when you fault or you give the other person a point, that's when you assume the position, and then it's one shot.
And it's that plastic ball too.
Yeah, it's that little blue racquetball that like 400 miles an hour out of the
just getting pegged on the cheek with one of those, man.
Oh, and one of the guys that regularly pegged me with that ball during the wall ball is now a professional pitcher for the Minnesota Twins.
Interesting. It's a small world after all.
So his really hurt.
Well, I'll tell you, look, we're going to jump into Donkey Kong real quick, but I'll tell you what, if you guys have like any weird games that you played as a kid, send them into the Facebook page. I'd love to read a few of them out, especially with the weird rules.
PC or console or anything.
No, just like the ball games and the street rules. The street rules of hide and seek, and stuff like that. Just the weird games that you guys did on your block, on your street, in your park, whatever. Because I'm going down memory lane right now. We ain't even started. So that's
bonus points for hybrid activities like Peg It.
Yes.
Bonus points for that.
Yes. So we'll be right back in just a second. We're going to talk about Nintendo's second greatest creation, and we'll be right back in just a moment.
Review Corner.
All right, guys, as I mentioned, this week we're looking at Donkey Kong Country, one of Nintendo's most underrated classics, I guess you can say. Not that people don't like it, but I mean, it's just compared to other games of a genre, people...
It was outshined by some other huge games and characters, mainly Mario, the Mario Kart franchise, Tetris. Because right there, with Super Mario World, Tetris, and Mario Kart, you're talking about like 3 of the best selling games of all time. So that's a big shadow to cast, you know.
Throw Street Fighter on top of it, and you know, it's thing. But I mean, this game is, I think it's fantastic. It's got an average critical rating. Now, looking at all the critical responses that I could find, basically got it 8.7 out of 10. So basically an A or an A minus game. Fair to say?
Yeah, that well, on the Louisiana school scale, that would be a B, like a low B. But you know, yeah, absolutely. It had a different feel. Like it was a scrolling, you know, side by side game, very similar to like Mario and some other stuff that we'd seen already done. But it had a lot more personality to it, and you had the creation of new characters. They were using a updated engine, as well, and you could definitely tell as compared to like say Mario 2 or whatever.
I think it was the first. It always happens with the generation of games. Is like the first generation is just better than the previous generation, and then you've got the games that come in towards the end of the generation that show you just what they could have done.
The full actualization of it.
Because I mean, the Donkey Kong Country had the best graphics for a Super Nintendo game at that time.
Oh,
without question,
hands down. Yeah,
it was like 2.5D rendered. You know,
either that or the original Street Fighter for Super NES. That was pretty cutting edge at the time, especially when they released the turbo versions.
Oh yes,
with the accelerated hardware and stuff. Yeah,
but I mean, this game actually started out, believe it or not, as a boxing game. What happened is that Rare, who is the developer of the game, not Nintendo, and we'll come to that here in just a second, but Rare was working on a boxing game because they'd got new technology from Silicon Graphics, SGI, right? And that's now part of Hewlett Packard, I think. It was a brand new £80,000, so that'd be, at the time, about $120,000 computer. For a video game developer in the early 90s, 80 grand was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they went to this convention, and the Nintendo bigwigs saw how good this game was going, and they offered to buy the company. And so what Nintendo did was it purchased half of the company of Rare, and which Ray was shocked at, that if Nintendo was going to buy them, why didn't they just buy the whole company instead of, half of it? But they became what was known as a second-party developer.
In conjunction with Nintendo.
Yeah, it's basically for those who might want to know what that is. It means that it was kind of a double-edged kind of agreement.
Does that mean that Rare was the Epiphone to Nintendo's Gibson?
Yes, pretty much. Okay. They could only make games for Nintendo, but they could ask Nintendo. But they could either ask Nintendo if they could make a game, or wait for Nintendo to commission one for them.
Okay.
And then if the agreement was ended, they could walk away with the non-compete, wipe it out or anything like that. And in the end, Rare went back to Microsoft, which led to a wonderful lawsuit between Microsoft and Nintendo. But they just this new software that was coming out was showing a way that you could make 3D graphics in a 2D system. And it got Donkey Kong, Killer Instinct, and it was kind of the after the. Okay, if Star Fox with its extra chips in there was the first generation, the technology that Rare used was the second generation. I guess the better way you can say it. Yeah. Just better programming as opposed to better, as to hardware. Use the hardware that you've got to make what you got. So after that, Nintendo and Rare kind of got into bed together, and they developed the game. There was creative differences, but not like, screaming matches. It was more artistic differences.
Vision.
They were corrected very, very quickly. Everybody came to an agreement. So, for example, Nintendo didn't want them to rebuild Diddy Kong, because they wanted to market him something separate, so they created a whole new character called Diddy Kong and renamed the Diddy Kong at the time Donkey Kong Jr.
Yeah, that's super confusing because, I mean, I don't know, Diddy Kong sounds like a cousin or something.
Yeah, and apparently now he's just his friend. Oh. So, I didn't know that either until I started researching. I thought it was his son or his brother.
We're just friends, Mom and Dad, I swear.
You know, the other thing Nintendo had a problem was with the difficulty of the game. Because that's one thing Nintendo was weary about, because Mario 3 was a difficult game. And every game that they made since then, they wanted to make it difficult, but not...
But, like, playable.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, there's...
Like, Legendary on Skyrim is not playable.
It is with about 40 hours of business before you step foot anywhere.
Even then, I'm still getting creamed.
Hey, the secret is, come out of Helgen... Follow Rayloff, come out of Helgen, pick up as many stuff as you can, go to Nisa's cabin, and make some freaking potions. Do that immediately.
And then pray that the hired thugs don't come and kill you.
Totally off subject, but nonetheless. Yeah, the hired thugs are no joke on... Dude, mud crabs are no joke on Legendary mode.
I've died at the hands of mud crabs many a time.
But that is a story for a different day, as you would say.
But, no, the problem was with this game, I say the problem with this... You know, Rare came out with a really, really good game. I mean, they wanted to do a Donkey Kong game and they had to get permission, which is where the second-party development came in. So this wasn't developed by Nintendo. And you can kind of tell because it's not... It's edgy in a way that's family edgy.
But it doesn't have, like, that signature Nintendo look.
All feel, no. Yeah. It's you know,
It does now, but at the time, it was definitely a departure, or not a departure, well, an advancement.
Yes.
A step up from, but that, I mean, at the time, technology was rapidly growing, and it's still growing now, but not like we were back, 20 years ago or more.
It's like we discovered something and then went buck wild with it,
Yeah.
So, you had Miyamoto, the godfather of Nintendo. I wonder if he will be buried in a giant Super Nintendo casket that will turn yellow after a while.
No, but I did hear that per his will, whenever he's buried, ever so often they have to exhume the casket, and blow all the dust off of it and then put it back in.
We're just joking around. We love that dude. I think he's awesome.
No, absolutely.
Miyamoto is the godfather of modern video games.
But death is inevitable, so why not poke fun at it while you can?
Make yeah.
We just got really existential right in all of a sudden. Okay.
God. But no, he only had one suggestion for this game, and that was the Donkey Kong attack where he leans on the floor and slaps the floor. So the hand slapping thing, that was all him.
Is that to, like, knock everybody down?
Knock people down, find hidden treasure,
I've been playing that game for a long time, and I did not even know that was a move.
Yep. You press down and red. It was on the British.
Red?
Well, yeah, you got to remember the European SNES control pad.
Okay.
It was yellow, red, green, and blue.
Ours were purple.
Yeah. Like, first time I saw Super Nintendo from over here, I was like, oh, that's ugly. Super Nintendo Chalmers.
Yeah. It's like the Famicom, the first one I saw.
Yeah. Oh, but no, they did a good job. They convinced Nintendo to give them what they wanted to do. And, that was... The only thing that they did, that they fought Nintendo on and they won, was Donkey Kong's movements. Because a gorilla doesn't move like Donkey Kong does. At all. Like when he gallops, Yeah,
yeah.
So they basically based his entire sprint movements off horses.
Yeah, it's, you actually mentioned that to me in pre-production the other day.
Yeah.
And I went home and played a little bit of it, and yeah, man, I mean, that's straight up horse gallop. I mean, yeah, the way a horse moves, it's very...
graceful.
Yeah, very. But if you watch like a gorilla or any kind of primate move, it's very lumbering.
It's like they don't realize that they can take a step.
There's so much emphasis on the hands, and also too, you'll notice that like they don't really walk in a straight line. They kind of like, if they have to go in a straight line, like say I want to advance in a straight line, well, instead of just walking forward like I would, they literally kind of turn to the right and then kind of sideways lumber. So yeah, that would have been pretty awkward and confusing, even though it's awkward to make something that looks like a gorilla walk like a horse. But hey,
you know, British engineer, British engineer. What are you gonna do?
It works. I mean, and
they made a great game.
But Diddy Kong was more like rodent-like, I found.
Yeah. I could.
He didn't really put a lot of emphasis on his front half like Donkey Kong did.
He was definitely.
It was kind of mousy in a way.
It was a hybrid between a mouse and a frog.
Yeah, it was. I mean, with a hat on. It's like, oh, we need to make him look like a kid. What do? We
need to make him look cool and hip.
Let's put a T-shirt and a backwards hat on him. Yeah.
You know, if he rolled up with a skateboard, I wouldn't have been surprised.
Chewing bubble gum.
Yeah.
You know, with the
hello, fellow kids. Yeah. I mean, oh goodness, like you know, kids these days they wear baseball hats the correct way around. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, right.
I mean,
hey, Fred Durst ruined the backwards hat in 1999, 2000, whatever it was.
Yes, but he did it all for the nookie.
Yeah.
I mean, oh God. I could go a whole day about why I don't like Fred Durst in his music.
You know, I actually have talked to him a couple times. He's actually a really nice guy.
And I've heard that.
I figured he'd be a cocky SOB, but he was like, hey man, what's up? How you doing? Ooh.
He's I guess it's like the dudes from Nickelback and Coldplay and stuff like that. You know, the music is so...
But I've heard
they're genuinely nice guys.
I saw Limp Bizkit here in Shreveport with Incubus.
Wow.
Back in 1998 at Malibu Alley. Throwback for all you old folks like me out there. Anyway, long story short, because we're off the Donkey Kong trail again. But after they got done with their set, Fred Durst literally put down his microphone and climbed over the crowd barrier and walked through the crowd and shook hands and talked to every person there.
Dang.
I have never seen a musician of that stature do anything remotely close to that. So to me, that... You know, even though I find his music kind of pedantical, contrived, and annoying, he's a pretty cool guy.
Pretty cool guy. So, let's go back to 1994. And let's talk about the game for a minute in the way it's set up. So, as with most platform games in the mid to early 90s, the early to mid 90s, I should say, that's more grammatically correct, it's split up into different zones and different levels. So, there's 7 zones and 40 levels, and there are 3 special areas in that. There's the jungle, the mines, the valley, the obligatory ice zone.
You have to have an ice or a fire zone in every platformer. You have to.
I don't understand why Donkey Kong's going into a factory. Why would they have a factory on a jungle island? I've never understood.
I guess the sweatshops have to make their products somewhere, right?
Right. And then
they're going to use guerrilla labor to make our mufflers.
I guarantee you there's some drunk CEO out there talking on something who's thought of that in the past.
Fascinating.
We can train these chimps, and we only have to pay them in bananas. That's where the jobs are, people. It's not robots, it's chimps. But the levels are split up into different kind of categories. See, in the Mario series, right, in the jungle area, there would be all jungle levels. Makes sense. In this game, however, there is no uniformed level type. You know, there's underground, there's boss arena, there's caves, there's factories, there's forests, there's ice caves, and they're kind of just thrown about everywhere. You know, like...
Yeah.
It's just... Like in the first zone, you go jungle, underwater, jungle, forest, cave.
Well, I don't know. I thought that lended itself to the fact that you were on a journey.
That's true.
And see, with the original Mario, I didn't really feel that way because it felt like every level was kind of like a cut and paste, different time of night, different color building, different order. Because you had the same Goombas and Koopas and, you know, so I think that was just them trying to like weave a little bit of narrative, if at all possible, into it to kind of give it a...
Well, see, this is so you just mentioned night and day and weather and stuff like that. This was the first. I think this was the first game that the weather changed and the lighting changed in the middle of a level. I can't remember which level it was, but like
Castlevania 2 was the first game to do that. They actually would stop the game in the middle of whatever you were doing and say the day ends and the night comes. What a horrible night to have a curse. And it types out, it's like, beep, 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 like one letter at a time. It takes like 3 minutes for it to pass.
Yeah, no,
that was the first time I'd seen that.
In this game, it was very, very blended. You get to a certain point in the level, then suddenly the lights change and the rain comes down, or the rain disappears and the lights come back up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. It's the first kind of game that did that live, for lack of a better term.
Oh, okay. Also, another one, and I'm going totally random here, but growing up, I had a fairly religious household. I lived with my grandparents for a little while, and loved video games, but they didn't approve of me playing like Castlevania and some of the other stuff, Yeah. So they bought me this game called Bible Adventures, and it had 3 different games on it, and one of them was Noah's Ark. And there is actually a time where it is dark, and you have to try to collect animals in the dark with a lantern. Like you're holding this lantern, and you can see like 2 or 3 feet behind you, but then you'll just be running to catch a bird, and a jaguar will just pounce you, and that lamp will just go to like the other side of the world. Like, yeah.
Dang, I did not know such a game existed.
It's actually a really good game. There's David and Goliath, Baby Moses, and Noah's Ark. I think the David and Goliath one is probably the most fun, but it doesn't make sense because you spend like the first 30 minutes of the game collecting sheep. And you like stack them on your head. So you pick up one, and then you pick another, and there's a sheep on top of a sheep. Before you know it, there's like 10 sheep just swaying in the wind.
You're looking like Marge Simpson running around.
It's ridiculous, man.
The special areas of the game, there's a candy save point, which does exactly what it says on the tin.
Right.
There's Funky's Flights, which was the most useless thing in the whole game.
Yeah, I never found that really
you can go back to your level, and it will take you 3 seconds quicker to get there. Like 3 seconds, is that it?
Yeah.
God, what can you do in 3 seconds? And then there was Cranky's Cabin, and it kind of like there's an episode of The Simpsons where Grandpa Simpson talks about putting an onion on his belt and and just rambles on for a good 5 minutes. That's kind of what this part is, but if you watch it carefully, if you can stomach listening to him complain, he does actually have tips and hints in that.
Oh, okay. They just make it excruciating, so you have to actually kind of work for it.
It's underneath all the babbling and inane chatter, they could discern Shire and Baggins,
Right.
So the game itself, as we mentioned, is a traditional side-scroller, and obviously the objective is to make it to one side of the screen to the other. Split up into worlds, as we mentioned. This was one of the first games where you could complete previous levels that you'd already completed without having to go through some backwards, chord to do it. I think Mario World was the first one to do it, but definitely you could do it in this one. It was starting to become more and more of a commonplace thing. Because they put so many things hidden in the level, you couldn't get it at the first time. I guess.
Like those, the DK medallion or whatever it was?
Yeah.
The gold coin that you had to collect?
It was the word.
Yeah,
K-O-N-D.
yeah. Kong, yeah.
As with most games like this, if you touch an enemy, you die. Which I've always laughed at, I could walk up to you, I have to jump on you 6 times before you die, but you just walk up to me and go, beep, and I'm dead.
Yeah.
But with this game, you had Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. Basically, your party had to be reduced to 0 before you died.
So basically, Donkey Kong or Diddy Kong served as life 1, and the other one served as life 2.
And then after you lost life 2, you start again. It was one of the first games to offer continues without having to collect continues.
I can't recall if they're unlimited or if it's like Contra where you get like 3.
I think it's 2. No, actually, no. I think it's unlimited, but you always start back at the beginning of the world that you were on when you died.
Up, down, left, right, BA start.
Right. So
trying that for every game when I was a kid.
So if you're halfway through World 3, you don't have to start at World 1. You start at the beginning of World 3 again, but you have to do all the levels that you did in the meantime.
But in the meantime,
I tried to actually put that code in for Street Fighter so many times I could never get it right. But apparently it is in the Street Fighter game.
It's in a bunch of them, apparently. Yeah, that actually started I'm trying to remember what game it was. It was a side-by-side airplane game.
Yeah, kind of like an R-type deal.
I can't remember the exact name of it, but...
it wasn't Contra, it was...
you remember, I think it was G-Force, or... Anyways.
It was just such a difficult game. The developer had to put the code in just to get through the level.
And then he left it in on accident. Someone else figured it out, and then it kind of became like this phenomenon that spread through the gaming world. And I've heard there's even modern-day games where you can enter that, and stuff will happen. Like, I can't remember which one. I was reading an article about this the other day.
I'll try to put it in Skyrim later.
Right. But there was one, I think it was a Super NES game where you do that code, and it's like, haha, there's nothing here. That doesn't do anything. You suck.
Just Easter eggs and stuff like that. Cheetah.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
One thing I loved about Donkey Kong was the modes, right? There were only 3 modes, and they were exactly the same on paper, right? You had the traditional 1-player, where you control Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. Then there was the 2-player mode, where if you had friends, which I didn't, no. If
was it like co-op? I can't remember if it was a co-op
There was
mode
a co-op and a versus mode.
Oh,
so,
cool.
In one version of the game, you control Donkey Kong and your buddy controlled Diddy Kong, and then in the versus mode, you both controlled a team. A Donkey Kong and a Diddy Kong, and you went through it. And they were distinguished by a yellow tie and a yellow hat.
Nice.
Because, that's one thing I always love, the realistic games like that. You go in there and you are, you go as Guile. And then you look over and your opponent is Guile.
Yeah.
It's like that Spider-Man meme was like, it's you.
Yeah, I actually got kicked out of a costume party one time for wearing a Donkey Kong Halloween costume.
That's only a tie, though.
Yeah, they found it very inappropriate. Just a tie, no pants, no shirt, no shoes, nothing.
People are just so sensitive these days.
I'm telling you, man.
You had 4 mounts in this game. I love the Rhino. Rambi the Rhino. He was like especially when he acted like a dog.
He's indestructible, man. That dude would just run everything over.
On Guard the Swordfish.
Yeah, he was touche.
Yeah, Mr. Pussycat. Winky the Frog. And Espresso the Ostrich. I guess because he could run fast. You only had him like 2 or 3 different levels. He could like glide for a little bit.
Espresso? Like white girls that don't know about coffee?
Yeah, pretty much.
Can I have an espresso? my wife, I'm not going to reveal her age on...
Beep, 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 beep.
But she's a grown woman, and a Java head, and I still have to correct her. I think it's an impediment, though. I don't think it's...
I never correct Sarah on any coffee, because I will end up with cold coffee poured over my head at some point.
You can tell her this, though. You know why they call it a latte?
Huh. Because you're spending a lot of money on coffee.
Because it costs a lot, and it costs a latte, and it takes a latte time to make.
I'm never going to understand this coffee phenomenon. Coffee just tastes like burnt water anyway.
Well, it's because you're a Brit and you guys have badass tea, so you don't need our coffee. You don't need our stinking Folgers and Taster's Choice and community coffee.
You should hold your Maxwell House in the harbour, not our tea.
Yeah. I bet the Boston Harbor tasted good, though.
Oh, it did. Ooh.
Like British tears and tea.
You know what, though? The thing is, I'm, for those who don't know, I'm Irish, and I'm part Irish, and
he looks Irish,
except the red hair. Don't have red hair, but my family's from Ireland. I just picture the Irish tea party, because the Irish folk, if somebody had thrown a whole bunch of tea in the harbour, they would have found a whole bunch of cows and thrown them in there, and a whole bunch of sugar thrown in there too, as if to say, now what, Englishman?
Dump some milk in there and grab a straw, man.
Throw some Guinness in there afterwards. So as with most games like this, there was a currency, and in this case it was the banana. The BANANAS, apparently. That's how you spell it, according to Gwen Stefani. But like Mario Kart and Sonic Rings, you get 100 of these bad boys and you get an extra man. It kind of copied the Dragon coins out of Super Mario World, where you had to collect Kong letters.
Yeah.
So you had to get KONG, and then you get an extra life out of it.
Fun fact, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, which debuted a couple years later, borrowed that from them too. With the
really?
Yeah, on the original series, like you would... Like the newer ones, it's mostly free roam. Like you'll bump into a guy and be like, hey man, can you do this on this? Yeah. But before it was like, all right, collect the secret tape, collect the word skate. do a 10,000 point combo, blah, 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 blah. So there would be these letters just strewn about everywhere that you'd have to
find it.
So you started seeing that in other games. That was a pretty cool idea.
Well, what's funny about Tony Hawk's is I never actually got the Tony Hawk skater, but I got like, Jimmy's skating challenge or something like that.
Yeah.
Really good game, but like, I was, for some reason I got the knockoff of it. With video games, you don't have to buy the cheap option because all video games start out at the same price.
Yeah.
So you don't have to get the generic. I guarantee you, people are going to buy FIFA 19 over Bradley's football challenge this year.
Yeah, it's not a GameStop's presents car stealing violence game number 6.
Exactly. I mean, there's no such thing as a generic video game. Well, what I mean is,
I don't know, the Bible Adventures?
Well, that's true.
It was basically Mario repackaged for Jesus.
Well,
I mean, literally. If you ever see a copy of this Bible Adventures, or you can actually look it up on YouTube, there's a review by the Angry Video Game Nerd.
Really?
Absolutely hilarious.
I'm gonna have to watch that now.
Oh, dude, and it's just so funny because he's like doing this thing with baby Moses, and he's like, man, baby Moses just flew like a condor into river. Like,
oh god, no.
It's like, dude, blasphemy.
Blasphemous. One of the things I loved about this game was it took elements of Mario 2 out of it too, where you could chunk stuff at people.
Yeah,
and I love the fact that you can chunk stuff at people.
Pull the stuff up, like pull the thing out of the ground and
pick out a barrel and chunk it.
Which is kind of an allusion to the original Mario Donkey Kong, where Donkey Kong was the villain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, was he the villain though?
I would say that's a matter of perspective, man.
Because from my reading of it, he didn't kidnap the girl went willingly. So if that's the case, Mario is an obsessed stalker who's trying to get in. Donkey Kong's
reverse. Yeah, it's like a reverse kidnapping.
Well, think about it. Yeah, how many times has Princess Peach been kidnapped?
Yeah, what if she just wants to be with him and Mario can't take a...
Yeah.
Are we like aiding a psychopath here? We're getting existential today.
Stalker, the video game, featuring stereotypical Italian plumber.
Hey, why won't you go out with me?
Mario?
You smell like lasagna and you're mean.
Oh, goodness me. But the barrels are not just weapons, although you could use all barrels as weapons. Sometimes you had cannons, which I hated that first level.
I love those, man. Those are awesome.
You mistime one, and it mistimes the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a system. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Like, it's very, very frustrating as a 12-year-old,
Oh, sure. I'd imagine, yeah.
The Donkey Kong barrels that have got your partner in them, I love those. Because what was always funny is watching you jump into an enemy, but you mistime the jump very, very briefly, and you lose the man. So you've got the little dude left, and you're right next to a thing. So you pick up the barrel, you throw it at the dude, and then your partner pops back out. It's kind of like that thing in Skyrim when they start talking smack, and then you kill them as they talking smack.
Yeah.
And then just stupid things like a stop and go barrel, which make things stop and go. I've got way too many notes on these stop and going on and off barrels in here, like half a page, and all they do is turn the lights on. Oh yeah, okay. Anyway, so let's go to the people involved in the game.
TLDNR. There are a lot of barrels in this game.
That's right. You skip forward to no. So you have Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong is the heavyweight of the two. This game also started bringing in realistic physics. And what I mean by that is, taller, bigger characters were moving slower but had more power, and smaller characters were more agile and athletic.
Faster, and more acceleration. Yeah, and that's realistic, because, how many dudes other than, Rob Gronkowski or LeBron James do you see that are both massive and fast? I mean, that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
So that's that. Even though these are
video games,
right, and these are, for the sake of argument, sort of heroic type of characters that normally would possess somewhat quote-unquote supernatural powers. However, the suspension of disbelief only stretches so far, so anytime you can add that pertinent realism to a game, it's just going to make it better.
Yeah, that's the thing. You had a drop of realism in a bucket of fantasy, and people will remember it. That's why a lot of people thought that Lord of the Rings, when it first came out, was legitimate history, because it was rooted in so much, I don't say reality, but it could be realistic.
It's folklore blended with
mythology.
And a little bit of realism, because it's once again, it's like magic.
Yeah.
The suspension of disbelief can be perfectly described through magic. Like, okay, we know David Blaine didn't make the whole car disappear or whatever, but he made it look like he did.
Yeah.
So we know that things just don't disappear and appear out of thin air.
It's like, okay,
however, you can appreciate it for what it is, because, yeah, dude, this guy just, you know, I mean, I've seen him do some stuff that's just unexplainable. So, I mean, but the whole point being, having that realism never hurts.
No, in fact, you know, they do that in sci-fi shows a lot too. It's like, you know, predating Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's, you know, like in Star Trek. It's like, you can't use the concept of a teleportation device is, with current understanding of physics, impossible.
Because you can't take molecules apart and then put them back together in the same order.
Yeah, and not just that molecules are not static; they're
dynamic.
Moving. Yeah. So and that was discovered by the physicist Heisenberg, not the dude from Breaking Bad, but the physicist who he's named after. And like in episode 2 of Star Trek, they just casually dropped in, yeah, we can transport down. We got the Heisenberg compensator that'll help us. Don't worry about it. And then you forget it because, like, it's the equivalent of, you know, Poochie died on his way back to his home planet.
Yeah.
It's ingrained in your head that they've already mentioned why they can't do it, and they've done it in a way that isn't long explanation. It's just, you know, I mean, back in the early 80s.
Oh, we figured it out. We fixed it.
Yeah, but
now it's fine. No problem.
And they named it after somebody in reality.
Right.
So you know. So yeah, that's how it worked.
The Picard maneuver. I tried the Picard maneuver on my wife. She didn't like it very much.
So then I tried the Riker mover on her sister, her cousin, who.
Yeah, always make sure you bring a mop after Riker uses a holodeck. Always. Wesley Crusher learned that the hard way.
Mr. Data to the holodeck. Bring a sponge.
I am sensing large amounts of protein. This is unique ectoplasm.
Data later. Oh, goodness me.
I am fully functional.
Yes, he was. Fully functional. Yes. So Donkey Kong. This is the ADD edition of. Well, I guess mainly. All right, let's put the research down for just a minute, right? And let's get to the opinion part of it. And I think that's the main part because it's kind of a complex game in looking into it, you know. And unlike the Mario series, unlike the Sonic, well, even the Sonic series, it doesn't have iconic enemies. You know, if I was to say what a naughty was, somebody would look at me going, "Huh?"
Yeah, it wasn't like Dr. Robotnik with the.
Yeah,
wrecking ball.
Yeah, the Goombas or the, you know, so
Bowser, etc.
The difficulty of this game is simple, right? The early levels are really pants-poopingly easy, and once you get to like World 3, level 14 overall, the difficulty scale kind of goes up exponentially.
That's fair.
Yeah,
I mean, by then you should be pretty familiar with the controls and plus if it, you know, you want it to be challenging. Why play a game if it's not challenging?
True, and
it's pointless.
And because like those first 14 levels, it goes up kind of like, you know, regular gradient, then all of a sudden it's like a swimming pool, you know, where you've got the deep end that's like 20 foot and the shallow end that's 3 foot, but it's not a gradient. It's like 3 foot, 3 foot, 5 foot, 5 foot, 10 foot.
Yeah, and drop off.
Yeah. I thought that brought out a good sense of balance, and it told how good, you know, people were playing the game. Now I've completed the game a couple of times at like 65%. I could never get 100% on it, and you know it was good at what it was, but it just at some places it was just chock full of enemies, and the gaps were big enough as to where you had to time it just right.
Yeah,
But it wasn't like at the last few levels like that. It was like, you know, 16, 17 levels in, and you've still got 25 to go, you know. So it cranked the difficulty way up after a certain point, you know.
I think that's fair, though. I mean, it didn't have a difficulty setting either, so... Yeah, there better be a pretty good learning, like a decent like learning curve in the beginning, like time for you to acclimate.
Figure it out, and then after...
I think 15 levels is pretty generous. 14, 15 levels. I mean,
it just felt like it just cranked up, you know, and that was good for it though, because again, as we mentioned in the video game series a couple of months ago, the guys playing that game, I mentioned I was 12, 13 when I started playing it, but those kids who played Mario, those kids who played Sonic or whatever, they wanted something that was a little bit more difficult and challenging because those kids were older and more intelligent.
Yeah, and not only that, but Donkey Kong Country was pretty family friendly, like Mario.
And it was it was slower than Sonic, but way faster than Mario.
You had a lot more going on. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and plus you actually had fully rendered backgrounds. Yep. The backgrounds were a little more fluid, had a little more depth to them. So yeah, it definitely looked like a whole different thing the first time I fired it up. But truth be told, I have not played this game as much as I have some others. It's a good game. It's not bad. I just haven't really delved into it that much. Yeah. Earthworm Jim came out right around the same time, and I just loved how wacky that was. I was watching a lot of Ren and Stimpy, and you can't do that on television. Yeah. So Earthworm Jim, as we've talked about though, Earthworm Jim is very, very similar to it. Yeah. I think it was one of the after effects of that. So
it's definitely overlooked a lot. Definitely.
I think it is. I think it's taken for granted. I think is probably better.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
maybe both, but
I mean that's what you can say about this though. I mean, it's hard being number 2 when you're competing against number 1, who's like, has got spin-offs and movies.
Well, especially when the number 1 is in your own backyard.
Yeah. So I think
owned by your company. Yeah.
I used to call this, and I joke about this, and we'll wrap up with opinions here in a second. But I used to call something like the Emily Osment Syndrome. Right now, for those of you who are listening, as you know, I have children. I have young children. I have my eldest are girls. Right, so I want to clarify that to begin with. They used to watch a lot of Disney Channel and a lot of Nickelodeon and stuff like that, and they used to watch Hannah Montana, which starred Miley Cyrus. Mm-hmm. Emily Osment Syndrome is where your sidekick and or co-star is a better whatever than you are, but you were not saying that you were bad, but is better than who you were, but you're being overshadowed, and your talent or whatever will never get seen, and you will always be compared to the other one.
Right.
So Emily Osment was Hannah Montana's sidekick. Can't remember the character's name, but she is a far better singer than Miley Cyrus and a far better actress than Miley Cyrus. But she'll never get her due because she'll always be seen as Hannah Montana's sidekick.
Standing in the shadow of her.
Right.
Yeah.
So Donkey Kong is an early example of that.
Yeah.
Because Mario... Look, I love the Mario series on Super Nintendo. I really did. But this game was better than anything Mario did on the Super Nintendo. Now, Mario kind of clawed it all back when it came to the 64 and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But for one shining moment, for one thing, Nintendo's second biggest creation was its best.
And if it had been out 5 years earlier, we'd probably be talking about Donkey Kong the way we're talking about Mario.
Yeah.
Maybe,
That's true. That's true. I mean, Mario was
the OG.
Yeah. So, as we said at the beginning, the critics said it was 8.5 out of 10. I'm saying it's a 9 out of 10. What do you say?
With limited exposure to it, I thought it played pretty good. It's pretty smooth. It's had some unique features. I give it like 8.5. I'm going to go with the original rating right around there. I think it's not the best game ever, but there's certainly games that play worse and that are worse. So,
And this game led off to a renewed interest in Donkey Kong. The franchise exploded after this. We had sequels and spin-offs, kind of like Mario.
Yeah.
Not as many, though. And actually, Donkey Kong now features in the Mario crossover games. So, Smash Brothers, Mario Party, any of the...
Mario Kart, all the Mario Karts, yeah. You got Diddy Kong or DK, one of them in there.
And even Funky Kong. Never go Funky Kong on Super Mario Kart Wii, because you will make your son cry. As I have found out in the 65 times he's challenged me and only beaten me 3 times.
Oh yeah, I destroy my son on a regular basis at Mario Kart.
Why won't you let him win? He's only 11 years old. How's he going to learn to be better?
Nope. Yeah, exactly.
You don't get a participation trophy. Instead, you get your dad yelling over you, yeah! Because, I am a gracious winner. Yeah, right. Okay, so that's pretty much it for Donkey Kong and trip down memory lane of other things. We've got a few more things to come, and we will be right back. So we're almost done for this week, guys. We got a couple more things before we wrap up. Last week, I asked which game series had the better games. Was it Super Mario series or was it the Donkey Kong series on the SNES? And the poll results are in. It is a 64-36 split in favor of Donkey Kong.
Really?
Yeah.
That's surprising.
You say that's a landslide, or? It's surprising. I mean, you know.
I don't know. It is very surprising. Mario's just been such a dominant force for such a long time. That's very, very shocking.
Yeah, so thank you to everybody who voted. We have more questions on the way. Like, for example, we are redoing the social media question from episode 1 because we are actually going to have time to do what we're going to do. And it's very, very simple. Nirvana, did they peak at Nevermind? What I mean by that is, would that have been the height of their thing had Kurt not committed suicide? Or been murdered by Dave Grohl on Courtney Love's orders.
Allegedly.
No, that didn't happen.
No.
But yeah, so if Nirvana had carried on, was Nevermind always going to be their peak?
No.
Okay.
In my opinion, no.
And I'll hear your reason why next week.
Okay. Well, I'll have a good one for it.
Because next week we are going to be talking about Nevermind by Nirvana. So we are back into the music. We've done a movie, we've done a video game, we're back to music right now. And so, like I said, I want your opinions on Nirvana. I think that Nirvana are a great band. We're a great band. And on the one hand, if they'd carried on, it would have been good and bad for the music industry as a whole, because we wouldn't have the Foo Fighters. And the Foo Fighters are brilliant. The Foo Fighters are brilliant. I can't see Dave Grohl leaving Nirvana.
Yeah, he seems like the type of guy that could do both, though, because he did them Crooked Vultures and
Queens of the Stone
Age and Foo Fighters all at the same time. So I don't know, maybe he could have made it work. Plus, I heard that Kurt was really, really into the early Foo stuff that he showed him.
Yeah,
like Kurt hugged him and was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! This is amazing." So maybe it could have. But hey,
secondary question. Here's a secondary question: would the Foo Fighters have existed without Nirvana with Kurt Cobain on guitar? To kind of switch the band dynamic about it a little bit, you know.
Like if Kurt Cobain was the guitar player instead of Chris Shiflett or Pat Smear.
Yeah, kind of like
I don't think that would have happened.
Was it Plus 44 or Matchbox Racer or something like that for Blink-182? Boxcar Racer.
Yeah.
It was the same people, but it was a kind of different lineup, and so they give it a different name or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. On one hand, like, maybe, but I think I knew Kurt was increasingly irritated with Nirvana a couple years before his death, because he didn't really care for the name and all this other crap. But
he was planning on going solo.
Who knows, man? Who knows?
Well, we'll get more into that next week. Like I said, we're going to be talking about Nevermind by Nirvana, their signature album, and that's pretty much it, guys. If you're on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, look us up because maybe pod. We're going to have a new blog in the next couple of days. I should have news on our stuff that I was planning at the beginning of the season, like, potential t-shirts and stickers and stuff like that. But for now, we are going to jump on and we're going to call it good. Greg, it's good to see you, man. We will see you next week, and I will see all of you next week. Have a good one.
Yeah.
You kids today, you don't have any respect for your elders. We used to be lucky if we got 3 shades of grey, let alone any real colors. We never had any of this fancy 3D stuff. Oh no, we had to survive on what we had. And what little we did have, we were happy with. That's right, 4 shades of grey in a 2x2 character block, and that's all we had. A single joystick and a single button was all we needed to make a good game play.